Every part of your life operates within natural rhythms. Your energy ebbs and flows. Your emotions rise and fall. Your clarity comes and goes. And even your sense of identity evolves and grows through these phases. And when you can learn to naturally understand and acknowledge and accept these different phases in terms of going up, going down, right? These peaks and these valleys, that's what's going to allow you to naturally ride these waves instead of trying to fight them. But when you learn to recognize and accept that these cycles happen naturally, it allows you to truly harness the full power of each phase to its max potential. And it all starts with expansion. This is where things start to grow, to increase, right? To get better. And then you have the integration where you're taking the necessary steps to become that better version of you. And you're eventually going to hit a peak. This is where you're going to hit a wall and you're going to be essentially overloaded in terms of taking in as much information and knowledge as you can. You're going to naturally need to go down, right? And understanding that is just truly powerful, right? Because when you go down, this is where you start integrating things. This is where you start to have your unconscious mind start building these connections, right? These neural networks of the new knowledge, the new information that you have acquired, all of that knowledge, and integrating it into your mind. And once we integrate it and we take action and we make the moves, right? Then we're going back up to the peak and then we're going to be heading back down so that we're contracting. So this is where things start to decline. This is where you start having challenges, problems, situations arising to really test you to see if you truly want to make this happen, right? And then once you pass those tests, right, you overcome the obstacles, you overcome the challenges, everything that's put in your way in terms of the universe testing you to be like, okay, do you really want this? Or is it just something that you are hoping for, right? You're going to get tested and then you're going to go into the expansion, right? You've overcome those obstacles, you've overcome those challenges, you've passed the test, right, that the universe gave you, and now you're going into the expansion, okay? Then you're going to have another valley here, and then you're going to go back down, and it's going to repeat this entire cycle, okay? This is always happening, and it's always going on, regardless if you are aware of it or not. And so that's why becoming aware of this is truly powerful, so that you can be aware of all of these and ride these waves instead of trying to change things when you need to be integrating, instead of trying to overcome obstacles and push through and all this stuff. You are contracting, right? And learning and becoming. So all of this here is the natural order of how we are experiencing our life, and the awareness and the acceptance of this is what allows us to take back this power so that we can be riding these waves instead of trying to control all of the different waves and peaks and valleys that are happening naturally and organically. So all of this here is essentially the law of cycles, okay? And so let's dive deeper into what exactly the law of cycles is. Brace the board here. So we understand that the law of rhythm equals the law of cycles. And so what I want to do now is I want to go deeper into what exactly is the law of rhythm at a very foundational level. So what is the law of rhythm? The law of rhythm says that everything works in cycles. And that everything oscillates. Nothing is ever static. Everything moves in cycles. Just think about nature itself. Days turn into nights. The seasons come and go. The tides rise and fall. This is a universal rhythm that governs everything in nature. Think about your emotions. They move in waves. They're always ebbing and flowing, right? One day you're feeling good, another day you're feeling bad. One day you may feel stressed out, another day you may feel happy and excited, right? It's never going to be a static state. You're not always going to be happy, right? That's the whole thing with like the happiness thing, is like a lot of people want to say that, hey, I just want to feel happy, okay? Well, happy is a fleeting state. You can't always be happy, right? Because it's not natural. It doesn't work with the natural order of things in terms of the cycles and the ebbs and flows of natural life. And so accepting this and acknowledging it is where you can get back your power. And here's probably one of the most important components of it all, is that you're not supposed to always feel good, right? You're supposed to have days that you're just out of it, because think about this. If you were just always happy every single day, happy-go-lucky, not a problem in the world, then you're just like happy, happy, happy. Well, then that's a boring life, because there's no polarity, there's no up or down, there's no challenges, there's no opportunities for growth, because you're just constantly always feeling good, right? So it really limits and really doesn't have the opportunity there for any type of growth and expansion, right? You need challenges, you need problems to help you get to that next level, right? And through those problems and those challenges, you become a better version of yourself. And sometimes they're challenging, and you need to go through things, and you need to do things that you wouldn't naturally need to do, but all of that is aiding in your growth and your expansion and following the natural order of things. Think about your productivity. You may be very productive in the morning, and maybe for 3 or 4 hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours, and then you need to take a break. And then in the evening, maybe you want to go work out and you want to rest, or you want to go to the park and hang out, whatever that may be. There's always going to be a natural order of you having your productivity, right? Like your flow state, your flow time in a certain amount of time, right? Certain hours. And then later on in the day, you're likely going to want to unwind and let all of that naturally happen, right? Because if you're trying to be productive 24/7, you're going to go against the natural order of things, right? You need to leave room for rest so that ideas and synchronicities can come to you, right? And while you're being productive and you're learning, so that those things can get built up in your unconscious, right? All of those new neural pathways can get built up. And then think about your identity. This is a really big component here, where your identity grows in seasons, because personal growth isn't just linear. It's not just a straight line, right? It's the same thing. You're going to become a better version of yourself. You're going to adopt new ideas, new beliefs, right? New emotions, all of that, in terms of you understanding that new version of yourself. And then you're going to go down, and you're going to have challenges with the newfound beliefs and newfound perspectives and interpretations, but then you're going to overcome those, and then you're going to go back up, right? And sometimes it's a rapid expansion. You have reflection and you have sustainable progress versus having a huge jump, but it's all about understanding the natural flow and order of things. And think about creation. Creation follows expansion and then contraction. Every creative process involves building up energy and then pulling back so you can integrate, right? You can build those neural pathways of the information and knowledge and the creativity that you have just learned or executed on. And so ultimately, what I want you to take away from this is that life is not linear, it's rhythmic. Think about breathing. You breathe in, and then you breathe out. It's a natural rhythm. You need the contraction for the expansion. It's a natural rhythm that's happening unknowingly, unconsciously, without you having to think about it, right? You're not sitting there thinking about, well, now I need to breathe, now I need to inhale, right? And then I need to blow out. So that's how you really want to think about it. It's a natural order. You can't have one without the other. Okay, so now let's go over the 4 natural rhythms that control your life. Let's erase the board here. The 4 internal rhythms that control your life. Number 1, the emotional rhythm. In terms of your emotions going up and down, right, naturally. And then your energy rhythm, right? You're only having a certain amount of energy throughout the day, and you need to sleep, you need to rest, you need to recover. And then number 3, your identity rhythm, right? In terms of who you're becoming. and how you're growing and expanding and evolving through each season. And then number 4, the reality rhythm. With the emotional rhythm, it's always going to be a thing where your emotions are constantly ebbing and flowing. You're going to feel good 1 minute, you're going to feel sad, you're going to feel depressed, and then the next moment you can feel good and happy, right? A lot of times that's all really based on state control, right? You can control this and you can fix this. A lot of times it's just using power poses. If you're feeling stressed, or if you're feeling sad or down and out, or whatever that may be, fixing your posture, maybe putting your hands up above your head in terms of like a victorious position. There's a lot of different things that you can do here to really fix your state, but also keep in mind that you're going to naturally just feel bad sometimes. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel just down and out and just like out of it. It's okay. It's a natural thing. And when you're in these low emotional states, one thing you can do is really focus in on being introspective, reflecting upon why you may be feeling this way, right? What could you have done different, or what's really causing this? And what I want you to take away from this is that you're not unstable. You're just simply oscillating. You're just simply going through a natural rhythm, okay? If you think about the image that was here previously in terms of the oscillation, right? Up and down, that's really all you're doing. You're just going up and down, and it's natural, right? We tend to freak out when we're feeling bad and think the world's going to crumble down and everything's going to happen to us in terms of negativity, but it's all just a natural rhythm. And then we look at the energy. This is the energy rhythm in terms of like how much you have for your output, physical and mental energy. And one moment you can have a bunch of energy and you're ready to go and you're ready to tackle the world. And the next moment you can be tired, right? Or it can be on a day-to-day basis where maybe you have 3 or 4 days of just grinding and taking action and making things happen. And then perhaps you need a day or 2 of rest and your energy's low. You're tired. You haven't had any time to integrate. And think about your current situation. Where do you find the best time to execute in terms of your mental and physical energy, right? You have those 2 energies that are really working in terms of getting things done here in the external world. Going to the gym, hanging out with your friends, right? All of these external physical things that you need to do in terms of your energy, and then your mental energy in terms of like your thinking, right? Your processing, thinking about strategies, methods, the mental load, right? That's how you really need to think about this. And someone like myself, in terms of where most of my work is really the majority of all my work is going to be online. And so I'm constantly having to use my mental energy, right? Where towards the end of the day, I tend to be a bit drained, where I'm at capacity and I just want to get away from the computer, step away and maybe watch something on YouTube, right? But it's just the disassociation with it. It's understanding that it's natural, it's going to happen. And it's really about looking at the patterns, right? Like, what times of the day am I most productive? When do I see myself needing to step back and integrate and relax and recover? Think about a rubber band, right? You have a rubber band and you need to pull it back so that the power can get built up, because then when you release it, boom, it flies off with a ton of power. And so that's how you want to look at the integration in terms of like, you want to pull back and integrate and let it marinate. And then once you're ready to go back at it again, you release, and then you're actually off into the execution in terms of utilizing your energies. And then we have the identity rhythm. This is extremely important here because we're always constantly evolving, whether we realize it or not, okay? And I want you to think back of all your different breakthroughs that you've had in terms of becoming a better version of you, or learning a new skill, or taking information from somebody and learning something, and then you're like, man, this is awesome. This is great information, but I don't know quite yet how to use it. And then a few months pass by, and then you're like, that skill that I learned, I think this is a perfect time for me to do A, B, and C. Let's say you were learning marketing and you were learning a bunch of marketing techniques and strategies, and you became a lot more knowledgeable, but it just wasn't something that you were wanting to start a marketing agency with. But let's say 3 months down the road, you're like, man, I know marketing, I learned sales. Why not just start a marketing agency? And then you step into a new season. It's typically going to be every 3 months, okay? Is how you want to think about this in terms of the natural progression and in the phases. Just like we're going through the different seasons, right? You have your fall, you have your winter, you have your spring, you have your summer. That's typically how we go through the identity cycles and phases. Sometimes we're going through confusion. We're questioning our beliefs. We're questioning what we're actually doing. Like, is this something that I actually want to be doing? Maybe we are successful in a particular business, and then every year, sometimes, right, we're going through a phase where we're questioning everything. Like, man, is this really what I want to keep doing? Is this really what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, right? So there's the questioning aspect. And then the integration, where we're processing new information, new insights, and forming deeper understandings, which then leads to the expansion, where we're growing into new identities and to new possibilities. So anytime that you're looking to shift your identity, you want to become a better version of yourself, right? You want to look at your future version of yourself and you want to grow, you want to do what they're doing and be who they are, right? You're going to need to understand that it's going to require contraction. And once you can accept it and acknowledge it, it's going to allow you to take back your power in terms of riding these waves that are naturally occurring, right? These phases, these seasons. And then number 4, we have the reality rhythm. Your outer world reflects your internal cycles, your opportunities, your relationships, your breakthroughs. And breakthroughs ebb and flow along with your inner rhythms. And with the reality rhythm, I want you to think about this like a pendulum, okay? Is this going to naturally ebb and flow? It's going to be back and forth, right? Your relationships, your experiences, your clarity, your breakthroughs, you're going to naturally have some, and they're going to be very great in terms of understanding new concepts, ideas, frameworks, right? And then you're going to have the contraction in terms of integrating that, challenging your ideas, the confusion aspect in terms of really questioning what you're understanding, what you're believing, right? What you're integrating. When you expand internally, emotionally, energetically, and identity-wise, your reality reflects back that expansion with growth and new possibilities. And when you resist the necessary internal contraction, your external reality also contracts or stagnates. So ultimately, reality expands when you expand, and it contracts when you avoid contraction. Okay, so now what I want to go over is why people suffer. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. So why people suffer. The masses, this is what most people do. They resist the down cycle. Okay, anytime they're feeling down, they're going to want to resist it. They're going to want to push through it, and they're not going to let it naturally just happen, right? And then the elite, or you can think about this in terms of like the people that naturally understand these rhythms and these cycles, okay? These guys, they use and leverage, okay, the down cycle. Like they understand that this is necessary and it's important, and then they just ride the wave, right? Instead of trying to fight it, right? It's a natural order of things. Just like thinking about, like, it's the winter time and it's getting colder and you're like, man, I'm gonna walk outside when it's snowing and just like a t-shirt and shorts, like you're trying to resist it. Like, no, it's cold, put on a jacket, put on some jeans, right? You see, because a lot of people, and really the masses, I would say, only want the positive up phases of life, right? They only want to feel happy, they only want to feel good, they only want to feel content, fulfilled, all of these great, beautiful things, right? That are amazing. However, life naturally has down cycles where you're confused, where you're exhausted, where you're tired, where you're uncertain, you have emotional lows, and you have stagnation. But these are all essential for growth and integration. And so the masses, they resist these phases, these changes, these natural cycles. They're trying to avoid discomfort, right? Maybe they are feeling sad, they're feeling depressed, and they want to go out and bury those problems by going out there and drinking and partying, right? And doing drugs. All of these different things that try to mask what they're feeling versus questioning, what they're feeling and becoming aware, right? Turning on that light in that dark room of like, hey, what phase am I in? What's going on here? And this resistance in terms of the natural order of things for these phases, this is what causes the suffering, because you're fighting a natural flow of life. You're fighting nature. And when you're fighting nature, you're always going to lose. Now, the elite, right? The people that are, I would say maybe 5 to 10% of the population. These people, they learn to embrace these cycles. They don't fight against the different seasons and the different cycles in terms of if they're feeling down, they question it. And they look at, okay, is this just the season? Is it the natural order of things? So like, what's going on here, right? They questioned everything versus just trying to sweep it under the rug, right? They're the ones who are riding the waves versus trying to fight them. Just think about it from like a surfer, right? You have a surfer who's riding the waves. That's how you want to picture yourself versus, trying to swim and the waves coming to you. It's going to, knock you out. It's going to take you out versus you looking at yourself as a surfer who's a professional who's riding these natural waves and you're on top. You're flowing, you're making things happen. You're letting things unfold naturally. And so ultimately, suffering comes from resisting these phases. Okay, so now let's go over the 4 rhythmic seasons of transformation. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase the board here. For rhythmic seasons of transformation. Okay, so right here we have expansion, which then leads to integration, which then leads to stillness. This is your reboot. Okay? And then this moves to contraction, which then naturally leads back up to expansion. So the expansion, this is your creator mode. This is where you're making things happen. You're creating, you have high output, you have high clarity, and you have high identity expression. And then in the integration, this is your absorption. You're internalizing the new identity shifts. And then down here in the stillness, this is the reboot of it all. Identity is reorganizing itself. New pathways are emerging and then leading up to your contraction. This is your reset mode where you have low clarity and emotional recalibration. Realize that this is a full entire cycle here, right? You have the expansion, the integration, the stillness, the reboot, right, of the system, and then the contraction. It's a continual loop that happens without you realizing it. And once you can become aware, right, you can realize and understand that this is all happening and be able to actually control your outputs and your inputs and ride the waves here. It's absolutely amazing when you really start to understand this and you understand that instead of trying to fight it, I'm just going to work with it and understand that it's natural. And let's dive a little deeper into these here. So let's really look at the expansion here. You have super high energy. You have a lot of output. Like, this is where you're ready to go. You're ready to make things happen. Like, I want to start a new YouTube channel. Like, I want to start a business. I want to learn a new skill, right? I want to learn sales, marketing, whatever that may be, right? This is your creation mode. Everything feels aligned and you have a lot of momentum. You're taking action, right? It's like you're in full alignment. And then we look at the integration, because after you start with the expansion, You need to integrate things. You need to let things settle. You need to allow for the absorption and for you to internalize the information, the material, right? Whatever it is that you're creating. And this is a quieter season where you need to focus a lot on reflection, on questioning, and cementing new beliefs and identity shifts. And then the final two is the contraction and the stillness. So both of these are what essentially are allowing you to reset the whole entire system, the whole process in terms of your internal operating system, because this is where you're going to have low energy. You're going to have less clarity. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel withdrawn. You're going to feel like, man, I don't know if this is going to work, right? You laid out this grandiose plan, this vision, and something's happening. Maybe you ran into a roadblock, a challenge, a problem, right? And you're questioning yourself like, man, I don't know if this is going to work out. Like, what if I shouldn't do this? What if I should stop? What if this isn't for me? This is how you're naturally going to be feeling here. And this is also often where you're typically overworking yourself, where you need to take a break. You need to relax. You need to clear your mind, you know, maybe go out and take some walks. Do something that gets your mind away from work. I know for myself, a lot of times where I'll be working, you know, many hours throughout the day, and it'll be good for me just to go to the beach and have a nice little walk. And in that walk, I'm integrating and I'm processing, and then I get hit with like synchronicities or different ideas or different insights, right? All these different things that are happening and that allow me to integrate and to understand that, you know what, I can't just have it be where I'm go all the time. I need to process, I need to integrate so that I can come back better the next time. And then the stillness here, the reboot, this is the deepest rest phase where the identity reorganizes and new neural pathways form. Now, keep in mind with these two right here in terms of the contraction and the stillness and the reboot, sometimes you're going to go into contraction and then go into the stillness here to reboot, so that then you can go up into the expansion, right? So keep in mind that this is not 100% exactly, right? In terms of going from the integration to the contraction to the stillness, sometimes you're able to really integrate the integration and the contraction right next to each other, right? You're integrating for a small little period of time, you're contracting for a bit, and then you go into the stillness to the reboot. But keep in mind that for the most part, this is how the natural cycle works. Okay, so now let's look at how the elite use the law of rhythm to their advantage. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. How elite use the law of rhythm. So how does the elite use the law of rhythm to their advantage? So let's go here. They use the law of rhythm for ride expansion, right? So they're riding the waves. Okay? They're honoring the contraction, right? They understand that in order to expand, I have to contract, right? Just like our natural breathing, we need to inhale to exhale. And then they use the integration, okay? They integrate whenever they need to let things settle and absorb so they can come back better. And then they protect stillness. Very important here, right? Where this is the deepest level in terms of their ability to just let things naturally flow and rest and then reboot, right? This is the reboot, right? Where they're rebooting their entire operating system. Think about like, you know, Windows Office, right? Or like Windows, like Microsoft Windows, right? Sometimes you're going to need to restart your computer, right? You have a lot of junk stuff going on in terms of a lot of browsers, a lot of files in the back, a lot of applications that are running. You have your recycle bin who's full. You have a lot of different files and different applications that are causing your system to run slow, while they're using this in terms of the stillness to reboot their system so they're starting fresh. So the elite, or like the 5 to 10% of people, like the minority of people that are actually in control of their life and they understand these cycles, they're not wasting their energy trying to fight these natural cycles because they've learned to master them. They understand that growth and success comes from working with the rhythm and not against it. And with the ride expansion here, okay, This is where life is opening up new doors, new opportunities. You feel high energy, you feel clarity, you feel in alignment, and that motivation to just go all in, right? You know how you get all excited and you're like, let's go, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna do all these different things. I'm gonna get up 6 in the morning. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna work out, all these different things. This is that right expansion. And then the honoring of the contraction, right? What they're doing is, instead of fighting the emotional or energetic lows like confusion, exhaustion, fear, or doubt, they fully accept them in terms of understanding that it's a natural phase, right? It's a natural part of it all. You're going to feel confused, you're going to feel exhausted, you're going to feel down and low, but it's about understanding that, you know what? This is natural. It's okay to feel like this, right? Think about the next time that you feel angry and stop yourself. Tell yourself that you have every right to feel angry, and then sit with that and be okay with it. Once you accept that and you acknowledge it, you're actually getting back your power. Because with the contraction, all these natural dips, they're not failures. They're just essential resets for natural sustainable growth. And then they use the integration to their benefit. They leverage it. They take those quiet walks by themselves to reflect, to think about, to process, to let the synchronicities just flow, right? These insights to just flow naturally because of everything that they did in the previous phases. And then the protection of stillness, right? This is the reboot. This is where they are meditating. They isolate themselves and just think about and reflect what's going on here. Sometimes it can be just sitting there and being in your own thoughts and just trying to be quiet, right? Quiet down your mind and just letting things naturally flow, right? You're gonna be having a lot of different thoughts go through your mind, but when you can sit there and just relax and just naturally let things kind of process and flow, that's that protection of stillness. And so ultimately, you grow because of contraction, not in spite of it. Okay, so now let's go over how to use the law of rhythm to transform your life. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Okay. How to use the law of rhythm to transform your life. Number one is you want to identify the season. What season are you in? What's happening? Number two, you want to align your expectations. Number three, you want to optimize your behavior. Number four, you want to extract the lesson. And then number five, you want to prepare for the next cycle. So this all starts with the awareness, right? The understanding of what cycle that you're currently in, right? You need to become aware and go into that dark room and flip that light switch on. Because once you become aware of your current season, it allows you to then start to work with it and understand that the next season is going to be X. And then the one after that's going to be Y, right? Once you become aware of what season you're in, you'll know exactly what to do and how to prepare yourself for the next one, right? Because it's all going to follow in the same cycle. And then align your expectations, right? In terms of number two, because you want to adjust your mindset so that you're able to become aware and honor your current season instead of trying to force progress where the conditions are not right. Because let's say that you're in the contraction phase, right? You need to expect that you're not going to be high output here. This is where you're going to be allowing yourself space to reflect and to rest. And then number three, you want to optimize your behavior, where you want to tailor your actions to the current season. If you're in expansion, focus on creation, on taking bold steps, on creating the initiations, right? The execution side of things. If you're in integration, you want to organize information, you want to reflect, you want to consolidate. You want to consolidate your learning, you want to plan your next moves. If you're in contraction, You want to rest, you want to recharge and allow for emotional recalibration. And then if you're in stillness, you want to reflect deeply, you want to meditate, you want to spend some time with yourself and really just isolate yourself so that you can really ponder and reflect, so that you can prepare yourself mentally for your next cycle. And then number 4, this is where you are extracting the lesson, where let's say you're using the contraction phase as an opportunity to gain some insight and refine your identity, right? To really reflect and to question and to really ponder upon the different things that have been happening and that have led you to your contraction, right? Like, what's been going on? What are the lessons that I can learn here, right? Because there's always a lesson in everything that happens, whether it's good or bad, right? When something unfortunate happens, there's always a lesson in terms of what can I learn here? What can I take away from this? Because there's always going to be something. And then number 5, this is the final step here. This is where you're preparing for your next cycle. Use this time to visualize your goals, set new intentions, and mentally prepare for your next growth, right? For your growth ahead. And so ultimately, here's the thing. You're not inconsistent. You're rhythmic. And when you honor your cycle, your life stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling synchronized. The law of rhythm doesn't just change your results. It changes the way that you live inside your mind.